Hey guys, it's Minu92 for Productive Gamers, and we're back playing Prison Architect. Now, the sort of first episode of the series that you saw was in the last video, in the What Are We Doing video, and a couple of you asked, well, it's a couple of my mates actually said they wondered why Prison Architect was playing on in the background when it didn't relate to the to what I was talking about. And basically, yeah, I just needed something to fill the space because I didn't want to have a blank screen or just do something boring. So I just put this on there, and also it worked out quite well because I did most of the planning for this prison in that episode, so you didn't have to watch it because the planning can get pretty boring. So at the minute we're just finishing off the final plans for the minimum security section of the prison. So another thing I wanted to clear up were the little symbol things in some of the rooms, like just on the top right hand side you can see like a Y, and that basically meant that'll be the yard. There was a C for the canteen, K for the kitchen, and V for visitation, I think, and that is just some of the rooms that you can assign from within the game. Okay, so we're just thinking about how we can expand the prison to the left of where it is, and I think what we'll probably do is leave it like this for the minute, because if you try and make a massive prison straight off, you have to get a lot of the stuff sorted out before, and you got to think about how it'll work, because otherwise you'll make a right mess of it. So we'll do bit by bit. We'll start off with a minimum security zone, and then we'll expand it out with medium security, and hopefully we can get a few maximum security guys in there. But I know as soon as we do that, that'll pretty much end the series, because it's very difficult to control the maximum security. And in the latest update, in the new alpha, there is super max as well, and that is just really, really hard to control, as well as snitches. So you can sometimes, when you get prisoners coming in, or you can assign them yourself, you can set them to be a snitch, and so they get information and they give it to your guards. But if they're like always within the vicinity of other prisoners, sometimes they can work out that they are a snitch, and that usually ends up in them being killed, which is not great. And it also reduces the value of the prison by 50,000 every time it happens, although that's only like a temporary thing. So what we're doing here is just laying the foundations for the main bit of the prison and adding the perimeter fence, which will stop any prisoners escaping out of our yard, because for the moment we won't be building beyond there, so we'll just lock down that one side, and my workmen are just placing a concrete sort of perimeter around the perimeter fence. So hopefully we won't get anyone trying to tunnel out, which is another thing. You can get the occasional prisoner will break in with a trowel or a shovel or something, and then they can try and escape. But obviously we don't want that. So yeah, we're just getting our deliveries in and chopping down these trees. A lot of the early part of the game it's a little boring having to plan out how your prison's going to look. I like to just get in there and make it, but that's always the worst way to do it, and this is the third prison I've made now, so I know it is better to try and plan it out before you really commit to doing anything big. So as you can see from like the main sort of overview, we've got a smallish prison size. We can still go about 3 or 4 times bigger than this on the basic map size. But when you get an accountant, which is one of the staff you need to hire to put in your office, then you have to, well, you don't have to, but you can opt to get more land. Right, so we're just going to move into the utilities and try and set up how our prison is going to work in terms of the lights and water pipes. Now every cell needs to be powered, and it also needs a water pipe to go to the toilet, which you need in every cell. So for the electricity cable, it doesn't need to be right next to a cell. They can be, I'm not sure what the exact radius is, but it's about 8 blocks, 8 sort of squares away, and you'll still get power going into those cells. Because otherwise, if you had like so many cables, it would just be a mess when you go into the utilities. So the first thing we have to do is place a power station and a water station, or a water pump, and those are the key things that are going to keep our prison running. Now, the larger you make your prison, the more power you use, so you have to add capacitors onto the grid so that you're allowed to have more power going to the prison. So at some stage we'll definitely have to add a few more of them, and if you get a really massive prison, you'll probably have to end up creating a separate grid, so you could have all of, say, the minimum security on one grid, and then all of the medium or maximum on a separate grid. And you really have to do that, because if you run them on the same grid, if you try and connect 2 power stations together, the whole circuit, the whole system will break, and then everything shuts down, all the prison doors open, and you could get riots and everyone just escaping. So we're going to add a few capacitors in here. As you can see, we're already using up about half of our power, and it's not connected to anything. So you really do need to get some capacitors in there straight away. And as I've got a lot of starting capital from the last prison I made, we can usually move straight on ahead with some of the big expenses. Right, so we need to connect up the water station to the electricity, which is simple enough, and then we'll run a few grid lines around the prison, sort of in a relatively uniform formation. Now we're going to use this one power station to cover this whole section that we're building at the minute, and as I said, later on, it depends which way we expand, but it may be the case that we have to remove like one connection to maybe this upper block if we extend it, and then have a separate grid powering this one. And that is really important, because like I said, the whole place will shut down pretty quick. Right, so we're going to keep adding electricity cable, and it takes a little while for your workmen to do stuff, so that's why I've got it on 3 times speed, and also the video is sped up as we speak, because the early stages, like I said, the early stages can get a little boring. It's more fun when you got to actually control the prisoners and set their regimes, and trying to make a decent, successful prison where they're not going to riot or bring in a load of contraband. And it's quite a detailed game, especially with the latest few alpha builds. Like, they've added remote, like a sort of remote system, so now doors, rather than requiring a guard to open them, they can be controlled by a remote system. And that means you can have one guard in a security room, set up you can have a CCTV table, and you can have a door control system, and then you can set up individual doors can be set to a different sort of servo. So you can have, say, on all the cells, you'd want them to be open when stuff's going on in the prison, so during like eating time, shower time, and all the free time. So you set that on one servo, and then the rest of them could be set to only open at certain times. Maybe that you want the canteen, that could only